Imagine a world where humanoid bats and other animal creatures live on the moon. A civilization surrounded by trees, rivers, oceans, and beaches. This isn't a science fiction movie. In fact, millions of people believed it. It was the first time the world witnessed fake news that went viral, and it happened before the invention of the internet. Fake news is not a new phenomenon invented by the internet. It existed long before social media and algorithms were even a thing. Sure, the internet has made it possible for information to spread at a scale and speed that no one could have ever imagined, but the core idea of viral fake news is not a new thing. It's as old as the printing press that printed this moon story. A story like this might sound crazy today, but in 1835, society was very different. Forget about smartphones and computers, television and radio weren't even a thing back then, and news media, well, that came in the form of a good old-fashioned newspaper. Your typical newspaper back then cost 6 cents, but there was a major shift in the way people consumed newspapers in the 1830s. Some publications dropped their price down to just a penny. One of them, the New York Sun, published a story about life on the moon in a series of 6 articles. The articles were carefully crafted to look like a real scientific report. They cited famous astronomers and scientific journals, which made the story seem believable. But the success of the hoax wasn't just about sounding official. In a world without social media or smartphones, people relied on newspapers and physical prints as their main source of information. TV and radio didn't even exist yet, and believe it or not, this was a perfect situation for a story about life on the moon to go viral. Fake news doesn't go viral just because we have Wi-Fi now. Sure, technology makes it spread quicker at scale, but the main idea of viral fake news is an old concept. Technology is only the vehicle for news to travel. It's just one part of the equation. Fake news spreads for many reasons, and we'll dive into what some of them are in this video about the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. August 25th, 1835. The New York Sun published the first of 6 articles claiming a famous British astronomer, Sir John Herschel, had discovered life on the moon. These findings were apparently reported by his colleague, Dr. Andrew Grant, an astronomer who supposedly was with Herschel during his discoveries. Dr. Grant claimed Herschel built his own telescope in New England, which was the largest in the world. It was shipped to South Africa later, where the discoveries were made. The telescope was so unique it had a specialized second lens called the hydro-oxygen microscope. This special lens was so powerful they could see the smallest details on objects that were super far away. The article claimed if there were tiny insects on the moon, this telescope could show them every detail up close. When the second article published, it was revealed that they saw evidence of plant life, specifically a dark red flower. There were also reports of bison, single-horned goats, and a weird round creature that rolled on the beach. The following day, the third article was published, where Dr. Grant mentioned seeing mountains, volcanoes, and trees. But the most shocking discovery was the 2-legged beavers that lived in very tall huts. Dr. Grant reported that smoke could be seen above the huts, suggesting the beavers knew how to create fire. The fourth article explained the sightings of humanoid bats that Herschel called man-bats. According to Dr. Grant, they lived inside a ring of red hills and had faces that resembled a yellow, fleshy color. The next day, the fifth article reported on the discovery of an abandoned temple. The roof appeared to be made out of a yellow metal material and was stylized to look like flames rising upwards, touching a large ball of copper. In the sixth and final article, Dr. Grant mentions finding an even larger, lighter-colored race of man-bats, describing them as a more advanced race compared to the ones they'd seen before. The article ends with an explanation about an accident that had occurred. Apparently, the telescope's special lens was left in a position where it caught the sun's rays, causing a fire. A week later, the telescope was repaired, but they could no longer see the moon, which forced them to stop the research. The article cited the Edinburgh Journal of Science as a source to make the story seem more legit and official. The only problem was the Edinburgh Journal of Science stopped their publication 2 years earlier. And another problem, Herschel found out he was given credit for the moon discoveries many years after the story went public. But he denied it, and his colleague Dr. Grant, well, he was a fictional character. So if he wasn't real, the question is, who wrote the articles? A few months before the moon hoax articles were published, another story written by Edgar Allan Poe was published in a different paper. Poe's story described an explorer who returned to Holland with stories about his adventures and life on the moon. Poe believed his story was stolen, and he was convinced it was a British journalist who worked for The Sun. This man, Richard Adams Locke. During the 1830s, there was a lot of speculation about alien life. There were best-selling books about civilizations on the moon. These weren't science fiction books either. They were legitimate writings by some very popular scientists. See, the astronomers back then, they were all religious, and so they believed
that all of the heavenly bodies were populated because God would not have created these worlds without also creating intelligent beings there to appreciate them.
Locke wrote the articles in The Sun as a way to mock what he thought were crazy claims believed by the general public. The articles were meant to be satire, mocking all the astronomical theories published by religious scientists who held positions of authority. It was supposed to show how science can be influenced by religious thoughts. What Locke did not expect, though, was that people would believe his story. The idea that it could be satire did not even cross people's minds because his story was so similar to what people were already reading by religious astronomers. They just assumed it was real. Locke felt conflicted at this point because he knew his story wasn't true, but he couldn't just come clean because the story belonged to his publisher, Benjamin Day, who was just 23 at the time when he started the New York Sun. Benjamin Day wanted to make as much profit as possible. A sensational story like this was a way to increase newspaper sales. They even hired a local artist to draw all the details and descriptions of Locke's story for the articles. The newspaper business in the 1830s consisted of newspapers that cost 6 cents. The content in these papers were pretty much about politics and finance. They were targeting entrepreneurs and the business community, but a new kind of newspaper started appearing called the penny paper, which as the name suggests cost 1 cent. The penny paper would not exist without the invention of the steam-powered printing press, which made it possible for massive quantities of papers to be printed for a very low cost. It also allowed newspapers to be more affordable to a lot more people in more cities. Penny papers printed different content compared to the standard 6-cent papers, which were about business. They were trying to attract more readers by publishing content that was more sensational, like local gossip and stories about crime. They also sold copies to people in the streets using newsboys who shouted the headlines for everyone to hear. Something else that was different about penny papers compared to the standard 6-cent papers was their advertising. 6-cent papers felt a level of responsibility for the ads they would allow in their pages. They didn't want any ads they didn't believe in to appear anywhere in the newspaper. This created a level of trust with readers that became standard with 6-cent papers. But penny papers didn't care about any of that. They let anyone advertise on their pages as long as they had the money to pay for it, and it was up to the readers to decide whether or not they felt the advertisement was real or not. The Sun already had a pretty high circulation of penny papers and was the first to use newsboys, which allowed Locke's story to spread not only in New York and America, but worldwide. The story went viral everywhere, throughout all social classes, and other newspapers wrote about it, suspecting it could be a hoax. People really didn't need to buy a copy of The Sun, because the story was printed in almost every newspaper, which meant some sales were lost for The Sun. But regardless, The Sun ended up making a lot of money. They sold special edition pamphlets of writings from the discoveries, and they also sold prints of the moon animals, which were produced by hired artists. Several weeks after the story was published, The Sun admitted the articles were fake. Most people thought it was entertaining and funny. They didn't feel deceived, so newspaper sales weren't really affected. If anything, it was good advertising for The Sun and made them famous. It also made them the first successful penny paper in the world. The Sun never told the public who wrote the articles, but about 5 years after the story was published, Locke admitted to the public that he was the writer. A huge majority of the public really did believe the hoax. There were skeptics, but denying the moon discoveries was looked down upon by the general public. People back then were fascinated by extraterrestrial life on the moon, especially religious scientists who were writing best-selling books about it, so it was totally easy to believe a story like this. Using Herschel's name and citing the Edinburgh Journal of Science gave Locke's story credibility. The sensational descriptions of the moon discoveries also made this story appealing to the public who were already used to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. These are things that made this hoax believable, using credibility, exploiting people's emotions, sensationalism. These are all techniques used to make fake stories seem legitimate. But the hoax would have never gone viral if it were not for the groundbreaking technology of its time, the steam-powered printing press. It really introduced the idea of mass media and its ability to influence culture and shape popular belief because it could reach such a large audience. Newspapers are not the only thing the printing press can print, though. It can also print money like the US dollar. Yeah, like 250 million in fake cash, using the same type of printing press that printed this moon hoax story. That's what a Canadian guy did, and here's a little spoiler. He got away with it and walked away a free man. You can watch that video right now. Just click it here or look for the link in the description.